The movie begins in Berlin, where John Fontanelli is a bike messenger. One day, he refuses a delivery order during his off hours. Later, an old man claiming to be an air tracker visits him, suggesting John might inherit a large estate. The man offers him $2,000 for a DNA test and advises him not to work while they sort out the inheritance. Initially skeptical because he is an orphan with no known relatives, John accepts the money and spends it at a friend's club, celebrating his 25th birthday with friends. The next morning, he receives a call from the old man, who tells him to pack quickly. Despite his friend Marvin Copland's joking warnings about danger, John decides to go with the old man. He is then taken on a private flight to Florence, where he meets Signore Vacchi and his granddaughter, Franca Vacchi, caretakers of a large mansion. Signore Vacchi informs John that he is a descendant of Fontanelli, a powerful figure from 500 years ago. Fontanelli's will states that his wealth would go to his youngest male descendant, making John the heir to the world's largest fortune. However, this wealth comes with conditions that John must use it for the good of society. Signore Vacchi explains that Fontanelli had a vision 500 years ago, in which a god instructed him to leave his wealth to his youngest male descendant on the 500th anniversary of the dream, coinciding with John's 25th birthday. John learns he must restore hope to people, and that there are two others in line after him, Kenji Takahashi and Luke Fontanelli. John eventually accepts his inheritance and is told to stay in the mansion until the will is read the next day. He is granted Italian citizenship and later meets Franca's uncle, Gregorio Vacchi, who talks about his family's global influence and his belief in the power of money. The next morning, Gregorio takes John to a hillside, where Michela, a security worker, privately tells John that the Vacchis are hiding something. She reveals that an accident occurred at that spot, which the Vacchis covered up, and asks John to meet her there the next day. Curious and disturbed by this information, John sneaks out early the next morning on a bicycle and goes to the spot. John climbs down a cliff and discovers a crashed car with an ID belonging to Lorenzo Fontanelli. Michela arrives and reveals she is Lorenzo's sister and that Lorenzo was supposed to inherit the fortune. She believes the Vacchis are behind his death and are after the Fontanelli wealth. John is shocked and determined to find the truth. Michela asks about the heirs, and John mentions Kenji Takahashi from Osaka. Suddenly, Michela attacks John, injecting him with a substance that makes him lose consciousness. She talks on the phone, confirming their target is down and mentioning Kenji Takahashi. Michela, who lied about her identity, is working for someone who wants to eliminate all heirs to claim the fortune. John wakes up tied to a chair in a rundown apartment, used as a secret base by Michela's group. They plan to create a fake video of John committing suicide. As they upload the video to social media, Michela covers John's face with a sack and leaves. John begs her not to go. He then hears a commotion and someone uncovers his face. John's security team rescues him, killing most of the enemy, and he returns safely to the mansion. He confronts Signore Vacchi for hiring Michela, who worked with the enemy, and for hiding Lorenzo's accident. Signore Vacchi warns John that his enemies are serious and capable. Frustrated, John considers renouncing the inheritance for $10 million, but Franca persuades him otherwise, emphasizing his unique ability to help others due to his own struggles. John agrees to accept the inheritance. After the will is read, he becomes the owner of all Fontanelli's wealth and is given a team of advisors to help him use the money wisely. Franca is sent home by her grandfather for encouraging John to accept the inheritance, breaking her promise to stay neutral. Signore Vacchi, who has been trying to influence John, prefers Kenji Takahashi, an Ivy League graduate, to inherit the wealth, believing he would manage it better than John. In Paris, Luke receives a package and is signaled by a man in a black Audi to get inside. Luke, a Fontanelli descendant next in line after John and Takahashi, is given a passport and a ticket to Manila, instructed by someone named Zia. Hearing Zia's name, Luke agrees and exits the car. Meanwhile, John returns to Berlin and surprises his brother Leno and his wife with his newfound wealth. That night, John goes to a club, spending money wildly and throwing cash around. The next morning, news spreads about John's transformation from a bike messenger to the world's richest man, focusing on his bad behavior and speaking negatively about him. As a result, the Vacchis attend a press conference in Florence, where they are questioned about John's capability to lead Fontanelli Enterprises and fulfill the ancestral prophecy. The Vacchis remain mostly silent, refusing to comment. Meanwhile, John decides to return to Florence after the publicity. At the airport, Luke sees the news about John inheriting the Fontanelli fortune and becomes very angry. It turns out that Luke has been approached by powerful people who support his claim to the inheritance. They want Luke to inherit the wealth so they can use his money for their own gain, like rigging elections and other dishonest activities. However, because of John's stubbornness, the whole world now knows about his trillion-dollar inheritance, making Luke less valuable to these men. Therefore, they now want him dead. Luke misses his flight and goes back to Zia's place to demand answers. She had promised to help him get the inheritance, but Zia does not answer the door, leaving him more frustrated. Just then, Luke sees the same Audi that picked him up before and gets inside. One of the two men gives him a phone with Zia on the line. Luke asks her how a bike messenger like John can fulfill the prophecy. Zia tells him to stay calm and lay low for a while. She warns him that some powerful people have ordered men to kill him. She advises him to fly to Algeria instead of Manila, and to run away as soon as she hangs up. Luke follows her advice, but also strangles the two men to death before escaping. Meanwhile, John is in a meeting with a group of experts discussing important world issues like job loss, poverty, and climate change. The experts debate solutions to these problems. John feels overwhelmed because he now has to save the world with his wealth. After the meeting, Gregorio thinks John needs a break, so they go to the seaside. Excited, John leaves important papers scattered all over the floor. In the next scene, Signore Vacchi calls his granddaughter Franca and insists they need to sort things out. He tells her he finally finished reading her paper on economic change and believes she is the only one who can help guide John in the right direction. However, when Signore Vacchi sees John's papers lying on the floor, he doubts John's abilities again. The old man carefully picks up the papers and goes to the underground vault to keep them safe. However, Signore Vacchi's weak health gives out, and he suddenly has a heart attack. Meanwhile, John and Gregorio are busy partying at the seaside. 4 days later, John receives a package from an unknown sender. Inside, he finds Franca's dissertation, which impressively explains how the world should work. In Franca's voiceover, we learn that the Vacchis are a family of lawyers and notaries who have helped the wealthy of Florence gather wealth for generations. The Vacchis have also taken an oath of neutrality, meaning they do not get involved in matters that do not concern them. Franca, born into this family, has different goals. Instead of helping the rich, she wants to assist those in need. When she learned about Jomo's inheritance, she saw a chance to make a real difference in the world. As a result, she wrote a dissertation explaining how the inheritance could be used for the greater good. That afternoon, John goes to Signore Vacchi's funeral and tries to talk to Franca. She learns that her grandfather sent her dissertation to John just before he passed away. John insists that she help him save the world with his inheritance. Franca realizes that even if John fed the entire world, it would not solve the main global issues. The problems are deep-rooted and need a bigger approach. Simply donating large amounts of money to poor countries would probably just fill the pockets of corrupt politicians. To truly make a change in the world, John needs to have control over the economy and how money flows. This understanding inspires her idea for an activist hedge fund, a smart and detailed plan to gain control of important companies worldwide. Franca had initially given up on her idea when Signore Vacchi reminded her that John was supposed to find his own solutions. But when she learned that her grandfather recognized the potential of her plan and sent her dissertation to John before he passed away, Franca decided she needed to put her strategy into action. As a result, she agrees to help John again. John quickly buys an abandoned power plant and turns it into his headquarters. Franca then recruits hundreds of employees, including John's friends, and gives them the resources they need to help those in need. Among the recruits is Malcolm McCain, known as one of the best and most unconventional hedge fund managers in the world. To simplify things, Franca tells John that Malcolm is the person to approach if you want to disrupt the stock market, provided you have the money to do it. The scene briefly shows Luke arriving at a deserted place in Algeria. Back at headquarters, John and Franca have their first official meeting with the experts. Malcolm leads the meeting and explains how financial markets work. With $1 trillion, John could buy almost anything, including a majority share in big companies like Amazon. However, doing so would quickly use up his money. For example, buying a majority stake in Amazon would cost $800 billion, leaving John with only $200 billion of his inheritance. Malcolm wants to expand John's image beyond just being the world's richest person and turn him into a well-known brand that people trust and respect. To achieve this, Malcolm shares that he has many skilled professionals in different areas like technology, marketing, accounting, and research. Their first strategy is to use climate change to attract activists' attention. They plan to take advantage of the chaos to strategically get involved with the board of ABIM Electric, one of the largest energy companies in the world. In the following scenes, John attends many interviews and conferences, drawing attention with his speeches about giving back to society, all with just a 3.7% stake. John and his team convinced half of the board members at ABIM Electric. While the world celebrates John's charity, Luke resents him for taking what he thinks is his rightful place. Luke, who felt lost until meeting Zaya, had his dreams crushed when John became the heir to the Fontanelli fortune. Fueled by anger, Luke travels to Berlin to kill John. As John celebrates, his brother Leno arrives, worried about their family's safety since John became influential. Leno mentions being followed and that neighbors want them to move due to safety concerns. Suddenly, Luke confronts John with a gun, claiming he is unfit to inherit the fortune. Security pulls John away as a shootout erupts, tragically resulting in Leno being shot while protecting John. The story ends with John heartbroken, holding Leno's lifeless body.